alone, no chaperone can get our number. The world's in slumber, let's misbehave. There's something wild about you, child, that's so contagious. Let's be outrageous, let's misbehave.
And then, of course, we must finish by talking about James Stewart.
Yes.
And the upward trajectory he was in. You spoke in your introduction about all the films he had this year and how the studio was putting him in all kinds of different roles.
Right, yeah, I mean, they were trying anything. I mean, he was about 27 years old when they signed him up, very young. He came into, he and Henry Fonda were best friends. Fonda was signed by Fox at about the same time that Stewart was signed by MGM. And Stewart was just thrown into everything. I mean, he played an action star in a movie that, believe it or not, was called Speed. He played, he was in Rosemary, I mentioned before. He played in a melodrama called Next Time We Love with Margaret Sullivan. And he played all sorts of supporting roles. And so MGM's job for the contract players that they really thought that they had a possibility, they stuffed them into like at least a dozen to 24 movies within the first 2 or 3 years to see where he fits.
Right, and to see where he connects with the audience.
Right.
And of course for James Stewart, now we know in hindsight, he connected in many ways, in many different genres. He is one of our great actors.
Yes.
And he got an Academy Award for the Screwball comedy, Philadelphia Story. But he was in a number of, people don't think of him in Screwball comedies, but he had a big career.
Oh yeah.
In many of them.
He was, I mean, he was under contract in the late 30s, and so, you can't take it with you. You can kind of call a bit of a Screwball and
Vivacious Lady.
Vivacious
It's
Lady.
a Wonderful World. No Time
It's
for
a
Comedy.
Wonderful World.
Harvey.
Yeah, so he was extraordinary. He was just under contract at the right time, and he was an incredibly talented actor. And we see what this role, especially at the end, kind of reminds me of the westerns he made in the 1950s, where he had this extremely dark side. So we don't, it's interesting because in post-World War II we see a lot of the dark side of Jimmy Stewart, but this is really the one movie where we see that.
Pre-war service, and
Yeah.
of course he was the highest decorated Hollywood actor. I believe his highest rank was Brigadier General, and he was a war hero.
Yeah.
But he came back a changed person, and his roles were very different. But this, what a surprise ending!
Yes, it is definitely a surprise ending.
With him being the murderer, wow!
And what's funny, of course, is that it took a couple more Thin Man movies before them to comprehensively frisk everyone. At the end, and they actually, I think it's in Shadow of the Thin Man, where finally Nick is like, you know what, let's just frisk everybody.
No more guns.
Before everyone gathers in the room.
Well, Rob, I wanted to thank you so much for flying out.
We're all alone, no chaperone can get our number. The world's in slumber, let's misbehave. There's something wild about you, child, that's so contagious. Let's be outrageous, let's misbehave. When Adam won Eve's hand, he wouldn't stand for teasing. He didn't care about those apples out of